So I was asked to record a little video about my garden, and I will share this with Jimmy and Stephanie and maybe others who might want to see what we're doing here. Obviously, I don't tend to my lawn like I should outside of the garden. This back area I'm letting grow kind of wild because the grass can be rabbit fodder, the wild sunflowers can be rabbit fodder, and that's pretty much all. Oh, back there I've got fig trees besides the grass and the rabbit fodder. So forgive the messiness of the yard, but here I've got Tabasco peppers, and these are, let me refresh my memory. This vine has started leaning. I probably ought to stake it. Yeah, these are cayennes. I should have known that. Those are Scotch bonnet, and those are just called the Bomb, and they're supposed to be hot. They're kind of interesting. The seeds are hot, but the meat is not hot. I've got invasive mint. We can keep mint all day. I've got these zinnias that really want to grow. I've got these gladiolas that really want to keep growing despite my efforts to get them out of the bed. And so I'm just coexisting with the flowers. Back there, I've got these lovely, I'm not sure if I'm focusing, there we go. These are kind of like a black creme sort of cherry tomato. And they are producing just in quantity. There I've got some beefsteak tomatoes. And there I've got some other kind of a darker cherry tomato. Oh, right there. And man, the flavor on those is just exquisite. The beans, I think, or the green beans are about done. That's what I had here, just a small plot of them. And these are runner beans that are generally used for dried beans. Here you can see I've got some zucchini growing. And the rest of this little plot that is hardly recognizable as a plot, this is okra with some zinnias and marigolds mixed in at the end, and a couple of eggplants down there. The eggplants, so far, the plants are quite small, but they are prolific. You see all of the eggplant fruit. And so I'm going to pick that round of fruit so that they'll put more on. Here I've got my mild peppers. I think those are just basic bells. Now those are, yeah, golden bell. I think that may be another variety of bell. I forget what that is. And these are your sweet banana peppers. And then I've got the cucumbers, and I've picked cucumbers already today. This is after picking some last night too. And there's a few that I could pick now, except that I'm going to let them grow another day. With cucumbers, you have a choice depending on what you want to use them for. You can pick them small, for example, if you're going to pickle them, can them, or let them grow larger if you want them for table slicers. This is tomatillo. First time I've tried to grow it. And here we've got more cucumbers. I've got 4 different varieties of cucumbers here, and I'm not seeing very much difference between these so far, but some of those are just growing prolific. Let me show you what I'm doing for these supports. So I took ordinary T-post, the green metal post there, and then I took PVC pipe and I ran an archway between them, bound them with wire ties or zip ties, and then ran wide gap fencing as a trellis, as an archway. All right, and then here's my other row with some tomatoes. And these are like a cherry or pear type of tomato. And more kind of smaller tomatoes here. So once again, I planted many different varieties of tomatoes. Some of them are thriving. I didn't really have room for as many as I planted, so some of them I think are kind of stunted. Here's some of the beans that are drying. Just let that grow and get dry, and there will be quite a few other pods here. Not as many as I had thought, but the season may not be done for those either, so we'll see how it goes. All right, so that's the garden plot proper. I think I showed everything there, except I've got this other type of squash. This is a what's it called, butternut squash, and you can see one down on the ground in the back that's insect eaten. So now I'm trying to get them to grow up the trellis to keep away from the insects. We had some yellow squash in here, and they got several of them, but while I was in Jordan, but I think insects got to the plant, so it's dying. And that's okay. They're a relatively short season thing, typically for me. So let me show you the rest of what I've got going. You guys were asking about composting. So these bags are bags of leaves that I picked up from neighbors when they were putting them out. And I really ought to get them out of the sprinkler spray. You can tell that every 2 days they get wet. I should keep them dry, but they'll be all right. Now we'll wade back here in my jungle. So here are my 2 compost piles, and I need to cover this up with some sawdust. Keeps the flies down. But I'm about ready to let this one, so it's just held in by fencing. And at this stage of the year, because of how full it is, it's now about probably a good 3 feet tall. You can see I've got the thermometer in there. It's not as warm as I'd like it to be, so I probably need to turn it, mix it up a little bit, make sure that moisture can get all the way down. And even if I just reposition that, I might find pockets that are higher. You need to be ready to turn your compost periodically, like ideally daily. Obviously, I didn't do that from Jordan. In here, I've got the new compost pit. I'm going to start filling it, and this is just a commercial plastic bin. I'm going to start filling it now, and all of our kitchen waste and yard waste will go in here for the rest of the season while we let this digest down. You can pull up weeds, like this noxious weed can just go in here. You can just fill it up with weeds or grass clippings. But as I was explaining, that one's tough. As I was explaining, anything that's green is largely a nitrogen source, and it needs to be balanced with things that are carbon sources. Here's my fig tree, just getting started. Poor thing had a couple of really hard winters when I first set it up, so we're hoping to get it going well soon. All right, so the other thing you asked about, or that we talked about, was worm composting. So let me go show you that. There's my house. There's my rabbits. Oh, since we're moving around to the front. Oh, the other thing I'm doing with gardening is lots of container gardening and grow bags. So these are potatoes, and hopefully we're getting some nice potatoes in those bags. We'll dump those out at the end of the summer. And the foliage has so obscured the bags, you can't really tell that these are in grow bags too. These are sweet potatoes, and they are just going wild. And they can serve, you can eat the greens like a spinach. You can feed the greens to my rabbits, or just let them grow the sweet potatoes. And here are my bunnies. This is Ivory and her kits, and only 5 of them are upstairs now. They can go down that hole into a tub to get out of the sun and the heat. And this, I got the feed bags up to give them some extra shade in the heat. This is Ebony and her kits, and she's got 12 of them. Eager little things. All right, and then these are the last litter. We've got a drippy water dispenser back here. There we go, stop the drip. And there are 5 of them in here, and they're ready to harvest. They're a little skittish, more than the little ones. I don't know, the little ones are a little skittish too. And there's my buck. This is Ben. He's about the friendliest rabbit you'll ever find. He'll curl up and sleep on my lap. Go to sleep in about 30 seconds if I put him on his back. All right. And there's the secret to my garden. Lots of fertilizer. Oh, and then up here, I've got more stuff in pots. And then I've got my blackberries and some raspberries and more stuff in containers and a little lemon tree. This is a little rose bush. The rabbits love it. Later in the summer, it's going to go crazy and start putting out branches everywhere. It would take over the side of my house, so we cut off branches and feed them to the rabbits. And got some flowers. Now these, I've got some more of the runner beans here planted mostly for the flowers. You can see they've got a pretty pink flower on them. I've also got, this is a red Malabar spinach. It's a heat-loving and drought-loving plant that thrives well here. This is a passion fruit vine, and it will climb up, and eventually it'll be like a grapevine. It'll take over this trellis and just be perennial. I forgot to show you my other trees back in the back. So the 2 trees in the foreground, those are cherries, and in the background is a banana tree. In the foreground we have a peach, and behind that I've got 2 columnar apple trees. I've got at least 1 apple on both of those trees. I've got at least 1 peach. This peach tree is bug infested and not going to make it, but I'm thinking about how to propagate it and start over with it. And then the tree that's in, the little short tree that's in between the rabbit burrows, is a mulberry, and I'll use it for both fruit and, once again, rabbit fodder. They like the leaves. All right, now I'll go show you the worm bin. So the problem with composting, as we mentioned, is just keeping up with the amount of brown material that you need. It's great if you can get your hands on large amounts of wood chips or sawdust or shredded leaves, but without that, you generally don't get a lot of good outcome from the from just the kitchen waste. Okay, so I don't think I've got my little digging tool over here, so this may be a little sloppy. I'm not sure where it went to. Oh, there it is. Okay, just fell down into the bag. All right, there's 1 worm up on the lid. And what I'm checking for now, I need to make sure that they have the right amount of moisture, not too much. We keep the cardboard over to let them know where they can eat. They don't like the light, so you can see down in here. Let me turn this over, we'll find masses of them. You see we put some eggshells, lots of kitchen waste. There you can see several. If I find the right patch, you'll probably discover a writhing mass of thousands of them. So lots of little ones down there, little babies. That's good. And I think I do need to feed them again. You see this, this is their droppings, and it is probably the best organic fertilizer, the best type of compost you'll find. It is just rich and dark and super good for plants, especially I can fertilize my garden with manure from the rabbits, but rabbit manure is probably not something you want to use on houseplants, for example, because it might bring in insects. But if you took some of this when it was thoroughly aged and you've got the worms out of it, it would be really good for houseplants. So now I'll break into this other side. This is the side that is most nearly ready to be harvested. I don't see very much kitchen scraps left in it. And so what I would do, I've got a little sifting tray, and I'll start taking, and I also don't see many worms in it because I've been feeding them on the other side. And so what I would be able to do is start taking scoops, sifting it, take the big pieces of it and put it back in to be composted further, and the small pieces that sift through can just go to the garden. So my recommendation is that for a small volume of kitchen waste, if your intent is to get good compost, worm composting might be the best and the easiest, but it won't be the answer most likely for all of your kitchen waste unless you have several of these bins going. On the other hand, the composting in the garden will handle larger volumes, but unless you can get those sources of carbonaceous material, then you won't get very much good compost from it. So those are the options. Let me know if you've got questions about any of that. Sorry it got so long, and I look forward to talking to you. Bye.